You're on night watch again. You hate the night watch. It's dark. Obviously, it's cold and it's lonely. Nothing ever happens on this backwater planet anyways. You've held the guard back for months and there are no signs of them ever breaking through the front. You deem your night watch pointless and uneventful. You see a nice spot just outside your encampment, nestled near the woods, and decide it would be a nice spot to smoke that low stick that you picked off that dead guard troop the other day. You make yourself comfortable on a stump, light the low stick, and gaze up at the stars. They are quite gorgeous, you think to yourself, and one day you will take them all in the name of Slanesh. But before that day can come, and before you know it, you see a glint of light reflect from under your eyes. Quite literally just under your eyes. You don't know when it happened. The only thing that drew your attention to it was the blade catching the light off the stars, and by the time you noticed it, it was already pressed to your neck. You heard nothing come up behind you. You can't even hear the breathing of your assailant. All you know is the blade is starting to make its way from carotid artery to carotid artery across your throat. You try to scream. Before you can make a peep, a large hand covers your mouth, extinguishing that sweet low stick, and in your final moments, you notice some interesting blue tattoos on your very soon-to-be killer. After your neck has been opened, your assailant drops you. In your last few seconds of life, you try to turn to see who finally got you, but you see nothing. Not even the sounds of footsteps are to be heard. Your last dying thought is that must have been a ghost. Gauntsghost is one of the most quintessential 40K series. The series is written by Dan Abnett and predates the Eisenhorn trilogy of books. And while the latter series is generally recommended for newcomers, I'm going to go against the grain and recommend Gauntsghost's first novel, appropriately named First and Only. First and Only was the kickoff for Black Library and actually originates a lot of terms used within 40K and subsequent novels, such as the term Vox and data slates, which are now standard vocabulary within Black Library books. The story is extremely grounded as well compared to events within the Horus Heresy or other 40K novels. First and Only follows the Tanith First and Only and their commissar Ibram Gaunt, an Band of Brothers style story that focuses on a small regiment of Imperial soldiers, almost always against impossible odds, from the likes of swarms of Chaos cultists to Chaos Space Marines and other far more intimidating opponents. The Tanith are unique as during their founding, their homeworld was quickly overrun by Chaos forces and destroyed, much like Cadia. Rest in peace. Thus why they are the first and only of their planet, as they're the only ones able to actually join the Guard, and will be the last ones of their planet to ever join the Guard. Tanith was a largely wetland planet that had ever-changing forests and biomes, which makes the Tanith people incredibly adaptable and excellent at stealth. The dynamic between Gaunt and the Tanith is the best part of the book, as we, the reader, are told everything via omniscient narrator, unlike Eisenhorn, which is all first person. With an omniscient point of view for Gauntsghost, we get much more insight into each character, and there are a lot of characters. We even see parts of the story from the villain's POV, which actually gives a sense of attachment to all characters, even the bad ones, and which is different in contrast to Eisenhorn, where some villains never even get to speak before they are killed off. The numerous characters lends itself to some fantastic world building, as we get a lot of different perspectives and opinions on the setting of 40K and the characters that reside there, all with different views of the world, and mostly from that grounded perspective, as they are just regular people. This is one of the factors that I think makes it such a great book for newcomers to 40K. First and Only is really an anthology book. It's multiple short stories all intersecting together. There's 4 big main events and multiple intersecting flashback stories to flesh out characters, namely Gaunt himself for this first novel. The book starts with all-out trench warfare, then to shore leave and a spaceship mutiny. I don't want to give away too many beats of the story, as I highly urge you to read it on your own, but these are just some of the settings you'll find within First and Only. Colonel Commissar Ibram Gaunt is a fantastic protagonist, and he is him. Whenever Gaunt is present in the story, you know he is going to do some cool shit. Gaunt differs from our traditional structure of Commissar just by the fact that he actually cares about his men. Many Commissars throw bodies at the enemy as a human meat shield to meet their goal.
So I have a new strategy, and you're just going to have to trust me on this. Die for me. Die for me. Okay? Any questions? No questions. Good.
Whereas Gaunt has the strongest weapon of all in 40K, that being common sense. Gaunt has a finite number of soldiers, 2,000 to be exact, which in terms of 40k scale is minuscule, so he takes his time to know each and every member of his regiment, as well as their strengths and weaknesses and how he can utilize his troops to best complete their objectives. This gives the novel some great band of brother beats and some relatively comedic scenes given the circumstances due to the characters' chemistry. I think this is where Gaunt's Ghost truly shines over other 40k books, as we get to spend a lot of time with these characters. We really get to know them as just regular humans living a grimdark existence versus Primarchs and Space Marines that are borderline superheroes in their representation compared to the Tanith. Dan Abnett does a fantastic job of grounding the story and fleshing out the characters. Granted, Ghostmaker, as mentioned before, the sequel, The First and Only, does this substantially more, as First and Only is only our intro to these characters, whereas Ghostmaker certainly digs into them a bit more. What we see in First and Only is only the start of their relationship with Gaunt and his ghosts, and many of them resent him and blame him for taking them from their homeworld in the time of its destruction. So our story starts with the mending of a relationship, as Gaunt has to prove to the ghosts he is above the average commissar and has their best interest in mind. As mentioned before, the story goes through several different smaller stories in which we see the rise of Gaunt via flashbacks, guard against guard, and a regiment of Tanith dicking around on shore leave. As I said multiple times before, super grounded as far as 40k goes. But it all really comes to a massive endgame payoff that really proves how formidable the ghosts are. Now, we're going to get into the end of the story just because it's a pretty big talking point, so definite spoilers ahead. You have been warned. If you have not read the book yet, I highly implore you to go do so. If you had read it, feel free to stick around for this last little bit. Throughout the events of the novel, the ghost journey ends up leading them to Manzoid Epsilon, where they discover an STC, or standard template construct, in a large factory below a chaos-ridden city. This STC in this factory is a Men of Iron manufacturing plant that is now also overthrown by chaos. There are parties within the story that wish to start producing Men of Iron in the name of the Emperor, surprisingly fighting chaos with chaos for the greater good, or that's how they view it. And this is very obviously a horrible fucking idea, because the Dark Age of technology was a thing, and the Scala Proganium exists because Gaunt knows of the Dark Age of technology and does not want the Men of Iron to be awoken, which leads to a fantastic end as the ghosts have to fight chaos-corrupted Men of Iron, something of which is not really found within other 40k books. This throws back to bygone ages within Warhammer, and giving the ghosts a massively foreboding foe is just chef's kiss. It makes the stakes feel large without having them alter the setting too much. Granted, if the ghosts actually lost and the Men of Iron were reawakened, that would mean big things for the current setting, but alas, they're victorious if you didn't know by there being another 15 books following this one. In summary, read First and Only right now if you're a Guard fan and have not read Gaunt's Ghost. You are genuinely doing yourself a disservice. So anyway, thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to interact with the video in some way, or don't. I can't really tell you what to do, but either way, I love you all, and goodbye.